where ambition meets peace. Founder of Peacefully Ambitious CEO, Drasko Raicevic helps leaders turn stress into peace, guiding founders toward steadier and more joyful success, with leadership rooted in clarity, purpose, and inner calm. So success no longer costs them their well-being. This is Drasko Raicevic.
Hello, here we go.
Hi, Drasko.
How's it going?
Good. How's it going with you?
Good. I mean, it's always nice when somebody prepares such a nice intro to yourself. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, who is that guy? And then, oh yeah, it's like, that's me. So thank you for doing such a great job with that.
Yes, we worked hard on it. And by we, I mean Czar.
Okay.
So she did a great job. She's doing a great job. And I like the how they said your name.
I mean, I don't know who pronounced it, but like it was an honest attempt to like pronounce it properly. So points are given to like where credit is due. You know what I mean? So that's okay.
It was very, very elegant.
It was. Yes. Yes, it was.
So Drasko is a Canadian. So here's another part of the world represented. And also we work together, and you will find out that he is also one of those very calm voices of the world. So, Drasko, are you ready to start?
Yeah. Let's get to it.
Do you have like slides or? Well, I don't know.
I do have slides, so let me just set them up. I got you on one screen now, and I'm going to get the slides in the other screen. So.
Oh, you have two screens. Oh, yeah. See, that's what they recommend. So.
Okay. Are you able to see them pop up now?
You ready? Oh, yeah, I do see them. How about that?
Okay, there we go.
Okay, I'm going to leave you. Take it away.
Okay, perfect. Well, so as Celia said, my name is Drasko, and I'm here to show you how calm can be used as a superpower, and how regulating yourself through overwhelm and chaos is probably one of the most productive and also self-soothing and calming things I think you can do for obviously yourself, and then broadly towards your community, your family, your friends, etc. And I came into this work so I primarily work with founders and CEOs that are leading companies that are going through the stresses of growing companies. So overwhelm, especially as it is shown on this particular slide, is very much a daily reality to them. And I don't want to just say like this is like the only type of person that deals with overwhelm. I mean, obviously, if you're a teacher, you're dealing with it daily. If you're a mom, going through all of the stuff that requires you to do all the things you need to do to raise your child, etc. It's like the tsunami of overwhelm, specifically in terms of like what are all the things that I need to do, very much feels like what is on this picture. So what I want to dive into today is like, okay, well, for the people that, consider themselves quote unquote high performers as far as like business productivity is concerned, like how did they deal with overwhelm, and how do I deal with when it comes up with my clients, so that you can be less affected by what is actually happening in the tsunami of to-dos and go into the grounded state where like, okay, I can handle this. I can handle what's coming my way. I can stay grounded through it and basically be the superpower that is on the image. So that's kind of what I'm going to guide you through. And the first place we're going to start is really, this is actually the more accurate depiction of where it is that we want to go. So I know it's appealing to have the, guy who's going to like take on this big tsunami of stuff and I'm just going to be calm through it and it can't affect me like a rock on a beach. And the reality is like that you're just going to fail at doing that. There's always going to be more stuff to do. There is always going to be more things that need completion or your attention or your focus than you're ever truthfully going to be able to complete. Right? It's like hygiene. Like it doesn't finish in one event. So where I want to take you firstly is just understanding that like this is the more accurate depiction of what it's like to stay calm in overwhelm, right? Unlike the first image where the guy is just steady and waiting, this is like an active riding of the tsunami of overwhelm and to-dos, right? And if you look at a few of the things on the picture, it's like the woman's not fully stable, right? Like, so she's actively having to balance on the board to ride the wave appropriately. Okay, so this is an active process. It's not like, I suddenly become calm and therefore nothing ever phases me, right? Like I think that's the fantasy of the first image. Right, her arms are out, so she's also helping to balance, like literally with her whole sense of being. And most importantly, she's actually smiling, right? So even though she is moving, even though she has to stay balanced, even though she has to basically remain calm in order to ride the wave, at the end of the day, she's still happy, right? And I think that that's kind of the essence of calm here. It's like not how do I become this person that is immune to overwhelm, but it's like how do I ride it in a way that actually makes it more enjoyable while not ignoring the realities that like I do have to still be active participant in. I do have to surf it. I do have to know how to navigate holding my balance and potentially risking, balance like falling off and things like that. So this is really the North Star that I'm going to be leading you to with the presentation. So first thing we want to do to orient ourselves to this is just, okay, well, what's a different way to look at overwhelm? Like what's a different way to look at that tsunami that isn't so massive and chaotic and essentially overwhelming? And the image or the metaphor that I like of this is actually this image of the path and the horizon. Okay, so the way that I define overwhelm with my clients is overwhelm is just a hyper focus on what's not getting done or what's missing. Okay, so if you look at that definition, it basically describes why the overwhelm of tsunami feels so chaotic, why it feels so huge, right? So focusing on the things we have to get done is inherently a good quality. It's a necessary quality. But the hyper focus of it, like nothing exists except that, and oh my God, everything's here. It's like that's a bit dangerous, okay? Because it's a hyper focus. It's over correcting on something that's naturally a good quality. And then what is the hyper focus on? Well, it's a hyper focus on all of the things that are never ending. What's not getting done is always going to be bigger than you can like literally do in a lifetime, and or what is missing, and what is missing in terms of me by the meanings I assigned to it, but it's not getting done, and also like physically what is actually missing. So the more accurate kind of mental frame around this is really like overwhelm is the actual horizon. Like overwhelm isn't the path that we see on the picture, it's the actual sun in the horizon. And when you're orienting your sense of calm, right, your sense of being, your sense of groundedness, your sense of well-being in terms of like how well am I doing and progressing, if you're orienting it to the actual horizon, like you're always in a gap by definition. You can never actually get to the horizon. Like as soon as you get to the point that was once the horizon, there's a next horizon coming up. So by definition, the horizon is an unachievable aim that we are putting so much of ourselves into, right? So it is a great target. It is a great North Star, but is an absolute terrible progress tracker because you actually can't do anything with it. It is unachievable, which means if you have the lens that like where I'm going with regards to like solving the overwhelm, I'm trying to tackle the tsunami, it is way bigger than you. You can never actually grab it, achieve it, do anything with it. So you're kind of failing from the start. So the first thing I want to look at is just like really ground into like overwhelm is just a hyper focus on what's not getting done and what's missing. And if it's the horizon, then I need to switch up how I look at overwhelm if I'm actually going to be able to ride the wave of it. Okay. So that's kind of like the first premise of this. And also that's why it's the chronic stress, right? So if I'm constantly in the gap, I'm constantly gauging progress, but something that wasn't made to gauge progress, you're just going to keep trying harder to do something that is impossible, right? It is like, I'm trying to run on a hamster wheel and then gauging how far have I come. It's like, you've ran a lot, but like, you're still right here, right? So that's why like this definition just shifts. It's no longer a tsunami and a wave that can't be conquered. It's now something different. Okay. It's a hyper focus on what's not getting done. Okay. So we'll use that as the main premise as we go into the deeper aspects of this. Okay. So understanding that new frame of reference, like the overwhelm is a horizon, it kind of puts us in this point where every time I present it to clients or to people, they're kind of like, okay, yeah, cool. Like that makes sense. But we get to this inflection point where like understanding isn't really like feeling, meaning like I'll intellectually understand that makes sense. I can see why it's helpful, but I can't translate that into like being grounded. Like I can't translate that into being the woman that rides the wave. So like, what's that disconnect? Like, this is nice to know, but what now? Right. So really what we're looking at with that is we got to understand, how do we feel overwhelmed? Because the actual tsunami happens not necessarily in our head. It's how we feel about what's in our head. So we got to address this not at the understanding level. That helps reframe how we're looking at it. So it is a part of the process, but we're actually looking at, okay, what's happening on the emotional level? What's happening on the nervous system level? And if we want to get into that state where we can calmly ride the wave, then we really have to get clear of like, what does it actually mean to feel overwhelmed? Okay. And that's really what we're going to move into. And then there's an exercise at the end I'm going to show you to like actually be able to apply this in your day to day. So overwhelmed at the end of the day, right? If we change the mindset around it, it's actually now a feeling. And it's a feeling of what? It's generally a feeling of some version of anxiousness, right? And as you can see in the image here, it's kind of like you can see where the path is going. It's kind of half lit up, but it's not necessarily like very nice to go down there. It is one of those where like there is a threat somewhere there. I don't know where it is, but like it just feels off. Okay. So when we're orienting all of ourselves towards all of the things that are not getting done, all of the things that are missing, repeated over time, our nervous system registers this as threat. Okay, so we essentially feel some version of threat when we are anxious. So we're looking at everything that's missing. We're looking at everything that's not getting done. Well, that's a threat to us. Okay, well, why is it a threat to us? Well, there's past consequences to not getting things done, right? You can trace this back all the way to school, right? You don't get things done on time, you're going to get bad marks. You translate this to work. If you miss this particular deadline, or you don't drop the kids off at time, like there is some actual real consequence to the things that are missing, to things not getting done. So your nervous system, essentially your emotions, like they don't really speak English. They just speak experience, and they've had past experience where it's been true that like, if this stuff happens, it's going to be a bad outcome, right? So it's associated that focus on what's missing as a threat. So if we want to ride the wave of overwhelm, what we basically need to do then is address, well, how do I not intellectualize that this isn't really a threat and I can get it all done? How do I actually soothe what's actually driving this, which is this anxious, emotional, and nervous system state? Okay, so that's kind of how we're building where this is all going. Okay, and one of the first thing I want to highlight with regards to moving down that road of fixing this, emotionally or on a nervous system level, is like, you can't stress your way to calm. Okay, the other analogy I use with regards to this is like, you want to bake, a cake of calmness, but all of your ingredients are like ingredients of stress. Okay, well, you can't put those ingredients together and get a cake of calm, right? Like the input has to match the output in some sort of way. And I stress this because most of the time when people hear this, they'll even understand the emotional pieces of it. So what do? They generally tend to repeat what they normally do and how they handle that tsunami coming their way. So this is usually the world that I live in with clients, because I work with high achievers all the time, and they will just work harder. Okay, cool. So if I'm hyper-focused on what's not getting done, let me just get more stuff done, and then I won't have to focus on that. So basically they respond to the threat by just pushing harder. And that's basically stressing your way to try to get, to try and go into that calm state. Eventually, this is a good way to get results, but it's a bad way to actually feel peaceful and calm. So you will eventually exhaust yourself. You will eventually go to burnout. Okay. So that also doesn't work, right? Like we can't stress our way to calm. The opposite of it is, okay, well, if this wave is coming and it's bigger than me, then I can't really do much about it. So let it just wash over. And then wherever it drops me off, it drops me off. And this is essentially the procrastinator's approach to it. Right? Nothing happens. And then suddenly the deadline is looming. And then there's all this like energy towards, let me just get all this stuff done. And then it's like super productive. But fundamentally that also leads to burnout, because you're kind of like going, crashing. So it's not a sustainable thing. Like, again, both of these can get you results. Neither can actually get you calm in a better state of being, right? Like, get results, not better state of being. So that's kind of conclusion here is like, well, both are coping, ways of coping with the tsunami. Neither are actually learning how to ride the wave. Okay. So those are kind of the basic premises that we're going to look at with regards to this. And what I want to do now is actually move into what I call the SED protocol, which is like, how do I develop a practice? How do I have an exercise that actually allows me to continuously over time learn to be the surfer, right? Like, how can I be that lady that surfs the wave, and not try and overwork myself and procrastinate to try and be the guy that's sitting waiting for the wave to crash. Okay. Okay, so let's get into it. So SED is basically an acronym of the 4 different steps that you are going to go through. And it is built around like increasing your capacity for the demands that are coming your way. So again, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you remember the lady that's riding the wave, right? Like she had to balance, she's proactively riding the wave. Like this is not a passive thing. So what does that actually mean? Well, if you look at how somebody learns to surf, they don't start out on like these massive, tsunami looking waves. They start out on relatively calm waters. And then over time, they could progressively get like better and better surfers. They can handle bigger and bigger waves. They're going to crash, but they're going to continue to learn. And this is kind of the exact same way. Like you build your capacity to handle a lot more stuff by basically getting better at handling the stuff, not freaking out when things get your way. Remembering when a lot of things are coming your way, it's like, okay, I'm just hyper focused on what's getting done. What do I got to do to handle this better? That repetition over time, which is going to encapsulate it into this protocol, is what allows you to go into that surfer state and make that like a regular part of who you are. Okay, so let's get into it. First step of the SED protocol is slow down. Okay. And I know this sounds very simplistic and obvious, but in many ways, this is like the hardest step because we're so used to doing a lot of different things. Okay. It is a non-negotiable step because you, at the end of the day, you can't build capacity, you can't build skill, you can't learn if you are caught up in all of those anxious emotions. It's kind of like, if you had a gun to your head, but like, like learn this new thing. Like that's not an environment that allows you to learn. You actually just can't physically process all of the input that's coming your way when you are in that state. Okay. So you have to interrupt the cycle of that overwhelm by just slowing down. And slowing down can look like many different things. Like you can put a timer on there. You can just observe yourself. I'm not going to go into like the super granular details of this because there's so many different ways it can be done. And I always tell clients, like, I can give you the menu of options in all of these steps. You have to create your own operating manual and like, how does this apply to you? Okay. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, like after this, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'll give you the basic framework and then you're going to have to fill in the details that work best for you. Okay. But what it comes down to is like, you just have to slow down in some sort of way. Okay. Because by slowing down, we can observe what's happening. When we observe what's happening, we get into that state of like, when you can see it, you can then change it. And that's really what is at the core of this. Okay. So once we slow everything down, we now move into attunement. So what are we actually attuning to? So now we're in this space where like, okay, everything's moving quickly. There's too much overwhelm, etc. Okay. I'm going to pause. I'm going to observe. Okay, so what am I attuning to? So generally you're attuning to what is your experience of anxiety like inside of your own body? Now, most of the time, if you haven't done this before, if I ask you like, okay, well, what does it actually feel like to be anxious? Usually where the brain's going to go is in like, you're going to describe what is happening that justifies or is the reason for the anxiousness. Okay. But that's not actually the experience of what anxiousness feels like, what overwhelm feels like in that moment, right? And usually you're going to have like few different instances where like you're going deeper and being like, okay, well, what is actually going on? Like, is my heart beating faster? Do I feel hot? Am I tensed up? Like there's so many different variations of like what this can actually feel like for you, depending on your own patterns. But like, again, if you can't see it, you can't change it. So we got to slow it down to see it And then we got to like take in, what are we actually looking at? So we want to know, what does anxiety, what does overwhelm actually feel like in your body? Okay. When we get beyond just like, okay, I'm describing something kind of deflecting, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't feel good. Okay, that's the good next step. But like, let's get more specific and pinpointing what that actually means. Because what you're going to find over time as you do this, you're going to find specific patterns, right? You're going to see like around specific people, around specific tasks, around particular times, I get more anxious. I feel the sensations of panic in my chest. I feel my jaw tighten up when this happens. So now it's kind of like you're building a higher resolution picture of like, what does actual overwhelm look and feel like for you? I'm attuning to it by slowing it down. I'm seeing it better so that I can begin to change it. Okay. And from there, once we've attuned to and understand, okay, well, what is actually going on? This is where we start to do things like apply nervous system regulation tools that work best for you. And I know I'm like bypassing over the quote unquote good stuff, but it's just, there's so many different ways that you can regulate your nervous system that it's just not fair to say, okay, well, what can I do as like the one thing? Because there is no one thing. If you are somebody that, for example, feels overwhelmed and wants to go forward and like do more, then you're probably going to be good by like slowing down, breathing, like really just settling into the moment, being like, okay, let me reassess. Like, what is it that actually needs to be done right now? On the flip side, if you're somebody that feels overwhelmed and like you start to shut down, it's like it feels like you're losing, 10 IQ points, etc. Like breathing slowly and calming yourself down is actually the wrong thing for you to do, because in those instances, you actually want to do things that kind of activate you more, like give you more of that energy to like push forward and see like, okay, I'm not going to shut down and collapse here. I'm actually going to move forward. So I know I'm glossing over the part that's like critical, but I'm glossing over it for the reason that if you understand the principle, you can begin to play around with different things. And again, make your own owner's manual on what needs to happen in this moment. And again, somebody wants to like reach out to me, ask questions. I'm all happy to do it, especially if you give me the context of how you're experiencing this. Okay. So moving on, right? We're slow things down. We're attuning to how we're feeling. We're attuning to what it is that we actually need in that moment to be in a more regulated state. And now we're going to identify. Okay. So what are we actually identifying here? So once your brain is online, like I'm not in that hyper aroused state anymore. I'm not freaking out. I'm not potentially less overwhelmed than I was before. Like I'm less overwhelmed to the point that I can actually like do something now. Okay. So what do I want to identify now? I want to identify what is the state that I want to build. What is the state that I want to learn? Basically, now that I've calmed down enough that I can actually begin to surf, how do I like learn to surf in this particular moment, in this particular context, right? That's why I said when you're tuning, you're going to look for patterns of like, oh, every Wednesday after this meeting, I seem to be totally frazzled. Why? Well, then XYZ thing happens of like, this person's here and I've neglected that there. It's like, okay, well, maybe I need to also develop some skills around how I handle all these things, right? So all of it is information that feeds who you have to become to be a better surfer in these contexts, right? And the concept that I have around this is this idea of the aspirational opposite. So two words there, right? Aspirational opposite. I'm going to start with the opposite first. So opposite is like, well, if I understand that right now I'm anxious and I understand my flavor of anxiety, well, what's the opposite? And the first thing you're generally going to think about is like, well, I don't feel as bad. I don't feel as anxious. Okay, cool. That makes sense. And of course that's true, but it's not very actionable because sometimes not being anxious, not being overwhelmed can look different. The opposite can look different. It might mean I need courage to say the thing that I want to say, but I'm avoid saying it. So I keep avoiding it. And that creates what's missing and what I still got to do. Right? Sometimes it can be like, I'm just content. Like I'm just kind of neutral and moving about my day like it's Tuesday, right? Like sometimes it could mean I am more grounded, right? Sometimes it can be I'm more focused. Like I know exactly the thing that I need to do. Okay, so what's the opposite of anxiousness in that instance? Well, it's actually, I need to prioritize, right? So again, it's going to look different for different scenarios and different people, but it's like, what's the opposite the actual detailed opposite of the overwhelmed, anxious state that I'm in. And the aspirational portion of it is similar to what's in the picture here. It's like, if you imagine who you would need to be riding the wave successfully in this moment, right? So instead of the wave crashing and it pulls you in and like you just get overwhelmed and like crash, what does the version of me look like? What characteristics does that version of me embody that actually rides the wave in that moment? That is like that lady that, okay, she's still moving, right? But she's smiling. What does that aspirational opposite look like in that moment, right? So I'm now slow down. I have tuned into what is it that I'm feeling? What is it that I need? Great. How do I shift it? Well, identify, okay, what's the opposite of this? What's the aspirational version of me that already has us figured out? Now we're moving into how can I do and embody that? Okay. So the core question you really want to ask yourself at this step is like, who do I need to be right now that can handle this situation better than the current anxious me? Right. It gives you that North Star on what do I look like when I'm riding this particular wave. Okay. And that moves us into the last portion of the SAID protocol, which is an interchange of like diffuse and do. Okay. So what does this actually mean? So because we're constantly aiming for the aspirational opposite, we kind of now have a North Star on our own identity, who we have to be. Okay. And that allows you to kind of narrow in, well, what are the 1 to 2 steps I can do right now that will actually move me there? If it's prioritizing, then okay, I can do the prioritization right now. If it's I got to feel more content, then maybe in the pause, I do some affirmations. Maybe it's I just see that, okay, things aren't actually that bad. If I need to focus, then it's like, okay, which things do I have to say no to? Right. But you see, like that guides what it is you have to do in that moment. Okay. So that's why now you're more clear on it. You get to do it. You're in a more regulated state to actually be able to execute that. You're not just at the whim of the tsunami coming at you. And it's the important part. So while you do that action, okay, you specifically and consciously diffuse that feeling into your body. And even if it's like a short kind of like 10% version of this, that's what you ultimately do. So let's just say if we take something like, okay, I actually want to feel more content. Okay, cool. Well, I don't 100% feel content because I'm only kind of like managing being not overwhelmed, but like I can feel 10% content. It's kind of like if somebody asks you like, okay, do you want this whole pie? You're like, oh man, I can't eat the whole pie, but like I'll take a slice. Okay, so take a slice of what that feeling actually feels like. So there's a part of your body right now that can probably sense into, okay, well, what does contentment feel like? So not contempt, but like content, like I'm content in how the present moment is going. What does focus feel like? What does prioritization feel like? And a confidence that comes from knowing this is the thing that I have to do. Can I continue to slow down and spend a little bit of time diffusing that through my body? And initially, this is going to feel silly. It's not going to feel like it's effective. It's going to feel like, why is it that I'm actually doing this? And at the end of the day, that is the 10% you want to diffuse. Because the whole point we talked about at the beginning, right? That lady is active. She's learning how to surf with increasing like sizes of the waves. Okay. And each and every time she has to repeat this, right? This is a process. It's not a one and done characteristic where I am this false idealized guy that's just sitting on, the beach waiting for the tsunami to hit him and it doesn't move, right? So this is an active process where the more I repeat this SAID protocol in all of the different contexts that happen, the better I get at this. And that means the better I get at this is like, I'm increasing the baseline of what wave I can handle. That was kind of like towards the beginning, we talked about, well, increasing your calm, making it a superpower in the context of overwhelm is basically just getting a better skill set to do this consistently. And unfortunately, you have to do it when the wave is there. Like you can't actually learn on calm waters. You have to learn on bigger waves. So part of this will have to be done retroactively. Oh, I screwed up, so I got to come back and like refine what I did. But like you can always go through these steps. You can always slow down. You can attune retroactively. Okay, how did I feel? Who do I want to be? Right, identify, and like, okay, let me feel into that now. Can I do a small action now? If I forgot to prioritize before, can I do it now to make up the difference so that when the next time comes around, you're able to actually practice it? So really that's the process, right? Slow down, attune, identify the aspirational opposite, and then do it and diffuse it into your body so it actually sticks. Okay. So what this actually allows us to do long term is really kind of the cornerstone of what we said at the beginning, which is if you are hyper focused on what's not getting done or missing, if you're hyper focused on that horizon, you basically miss the very reality, which is the only thing you can actually do when walking towards the horizon is just take the first 2 steps. Like the only thing that's actually in your control at any point, regardless of whether or not you have 100 things on your to-do list, is I can literally just do 1 or 2 things right now. And it's like, if I continuously do the 1 to 2 things right now, that is actually the only thing that I can ever do. That is the only thing that will ever move me towards the horizon. And it's the only thing that will ever move me towards the next horizon. So the question really isn't understanding that all I got to do is to do the 1 to 2 steps in front of me. It's understanding what's the quality of my state of being as I'm moving through those 1 to 2 steps. And that is an ongoing thing of continuously learning to be a better surfer of that tsunami of overwhelm, right? And when you can repeat that over time, that it's like, okay, 1 to 2 steps, 1 to 2 steps, 1 to 2 steps, do the said protocol. Like that's really how you develop calm as a superpower. That's how you develop the actual skill set of surfing that wave, because you can never conquer that wave. It is always going to be bigger than you. There's always going to be more things coming your way to do. So, it's kind of like you can't beat them, join them, right? So you join the wave by learning how to ride it better. And the only way to do that is you improve your skill set and your quality of the 2 steps you continuously taking towards that horizon, right? And really, that's why it's the ultimate superpower, because there's always a new horizon. There's always something new for you to conquer. Okay. And you always have something in your back pocket to actually like work it and essentially make it work for whatever the new level is. And that is how it builds internal capacity over time, right? You are able to get to a higher and higher wave, a brand new baseline each and every time. And that's how you survive. Like you move from surviving the wave, which is like we talked about again, like it crashes and pushes you somewhere, or it stops you from this false fantasy that like I can just stay here and like the wave can crash at me and it's not going to move me, which are all high stress areas. We talked about that. You can't stress your way into peace. You can't stress your way into calm, but you can calm your way in stressful times, right? So you can apply calm ingredients, okay, to get a calmer cake, even if it exists in an uncalm environment, right? The more you do it, the more you anchor into it. And that's really how it becomes both a leadership superpower for yourself, which then translates to, obviously, like I said at the beginning, your friends, your family, if you're a business owner, obviously your business. But that's that. So that is how you move into calm being a superpower. So thank you for watching. Thank you, Celia, for having me on. And yeah, I'd love to dive into some questions.
Wait, I'm muted. Now I'm not muted. That was great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Matthew, did you want an example of something? I don't know if he can hear me. I never know if people can hear me. He asked for the wave. Can I show this? The wave metaphor is a beautiful image to help our audience actually implement it. What is the physical anchor for that? If they are at home and feel stressed, what is the one specific movement or breath they should do to be the wave?
Okay, got it. So like if I'm in the middle of it, what is it that I actually do?
Right.
Yeah. So I think like the core ones here are always going to be, breath and like orienting to the space around you. So very basics of like nervous system orienting is like feel the actual ground on your feet, feel the actual seat that you are sitting on, and then begin to orient of like what is actually in your room. Okay, so like here's the wall, here's the light, etc. And the tricky part about doing that is people will kind of do it as a checklist. Oh, yeah, there's my wall, there's my, okay, like there's the window, I still feel anxious. Okay, cool. So slow it down while you are doing that. Okay. We talk about in this space, like we talk about like disassociating, kind of like blanking out, or if you think of somebody that's just been in a traumatic accident and they're in that like deer in the headlights moment. So like in those, the extreme versions of this, kind of like the traumatic event versions of this, your brain and your nervous system literally disconnects from your consciousness to a certain degree. So like you're not actually taking in everything that's happening. So by orienting, what we're trying to do is not disassociating, but associating, getting deeper and more fulfilled, more embodied in our actual body. And you do that by the environment, because like, and I'm making an assumption here, but most of the time our actual environments are not threatening. Like if I have a to-do list that's looming in my office, I'm not in any physical danger. Okay, so just by orienting to the environment, that's kind of like step one of the 101 of how to do this. And then obviously if you add the breath to it, that focuses you, because like if I consciously have to breathe, I can do this. And there's a lot of different ways that people breathe. The kind of traditional one is the box breathing. So you breathe, 4 count in, you hold it for 4, you exhale for 4, and then you hold the exhale for 4, and then you just restart. Right. And it's not just one breath, but usually I would say like 3 to 10 cycles of this will allow you to calm down enough. The goal here is really just do whatever you need to do to slow down. That will like overlap with the attune. And then you can move on to the rest of the steps. And it's kind of like, don't move on to the next step until you've done the step previous. It's not like, how do I get through SED as fast as possible? It's like, how do I sequentially move through it at the appropriate pace and the appropriate time?
And what do you so you always hear about, celebrating your success along the way, celebrating, an achievement. Like, how do you view that in all of this?
Just so I could clarify your question. So what you mean, like, are you saying like, does that have a space in this, or like, is it necessary? Is it not necessary? Is it counterproductive?
Yeah,
Like,
is
I guess,
it
what's the context of
necessary?
your question?
Is it so after you've done these steps and you're feeling better about it, is there some kind of encouragement you can give yourself to take then the next step?
Yes. So in the presentation, right, I had overwhelm is the horizon, right? Like it is the gap between where you are and the horizon in front of you. And if you're constantly orienting to that, you're by definition going to be overwhelmed. So that orientation doesn't work because we're trying to gauge progress by something that's ahead of us. So like we all do this, as in like when we compare to other people, oh, look how far behind I am, because why? We're projecting they're there, I am here, and in the gap is where I'm oriented. Therefore, that's why I feel bad, right? Or out of the 10 things I had to do today, I've only done 3. Therefore, the 7 make me feel bad. So what is there to celebrate when look at like the 7 that isn't done? And the shift to that I didn't mention in it, but like the horizon makes a great North Star, because it's a legitimate thing of like, where it is I want to go. I want to complete everything. I want to achieve this goal. But progress, you actually have to turn around and see how far you've come. So we measure progress backwards. And this is hard because we're so oriented to judging ourselves by the gap that's in front of us. So, and this is, in Dan Sullivan, he talks about it's like always measure backwards. So we actually have to turn around, measure our progress backwards, meaning where did we start from and how many of those steps did we take so far to get to here? That's actually the part where you want to do the SED protocol on what you've already accomplished. So normally we'll discount it because that's our judgmental default. So then what do? Okay, we'll slow it down attuned to like, okay, well, what does the judgment actually feel like? So it'll feel a bit different than overwhelm. It's some sort of like disappointment type feeling. Identify, okay, now it's not necessarily the aspirational opposite, but you're kind of identifying what are the wins and potentially what are the thoughts that I'm having around discounting those wins. Okay. And obviously there's processes to like go deeper into like how do you clear those up, but like even just naming them, listing them out, and kind of like allowing yourself to release them will allow you to do what? To at that moment then celebrate and diffuse into your body that celebration of like, well, look how far I have actually come. So if we're talking about celebration, you got to actually flip the metaphor and you got to look backwards, celebrate that, and then let that be the base. So like now that I turn around, okay, let me now celebrate the progress, which is how often have I done a protocol like this? Basically, like, am I getting better at the skill of doing this, at the skill of riding the wave? Then have I actually achieved the thing that I want to achieve? Because again, that is a constantly moving point. So it doesn't make sense to anchor into it. So what you're actually then celebrating as far as this is like, how many times do I successfully do this? Meaning default would be this. I paused, I, tuned in, I did the opposite, I diffused it into my body. That's a win. Cool. But that actually just happened. So we're again, that's moving and measuring backwards. So like when you get that interplay as like second nature, it becomes quite compounding. Initially just learning it's like, yeah, I got to go through, it's like training wheels. Like you got to go through the reps, break it down step by step, but it gets to be really powerful when it's just kind of second nature.
So as a parent of a young child who naturally gets overwhelmed, all parents do, where does this fit into being less overwhelmed with this little human you can't control?
Yeah. So I would say it fits in a few different spots that I try to implement. So number one, if I'm not already at the state where like the tsunami has taken over, right? Because
that would
like
be your child, or would that be the
no, that would be me. Because I mean, my child my child has no
kidding.
Capacity to like do any of this, right? So
often children are tsunamis. So I'm
correct.
just
Like,
kidding.
they got no filter, period. So like
Right.
they just fully are or fully not. There's no middle ground, right? So if I'm talking about myself, like, okay, so let's just say that, like the kind of spectrum of experiences for this. So if the tsunami has already gotten me and like I fell off the surfboard and like this just didn't work and that led into whatever, into an argument, into yelling, into like I'm just like screw this, into not doing the, like if we're trying to like reinforce something with like his behaviors, I'm just like, all right, screw it, like I just take the thing, right? Like whatever the collapse was, then the idea is I want to do this retroactively. Like after things have settled and I look back, it's like, okay, where did I collapse? What was the series of events that led to me not being in a state where I can actually do this in real time? And usually it's some version of, the day started this way and then I just kept ignoring what was my internal state. I just kept pushing through, and then you collapsed, right? So like the moment of yelling wasn't the moment of yelling. It was all of the accumulated stuff before that you stuffed down. So it's like, okay, the lesson here is like, that's a day's worth of opportunity to have practiced this in some small capacity that I missed out on. Right. So that's in the moment of like, okay, I did the thing I wasn't supposed to do that you regret, however you want to call it. And in the middle ground of that is like, okay, I am semi-regulated. I've kind of tuned in. The day wasn't too stressful. So what am I trying to do? So when I'm doing this like in real time, I'm trying to take in like, okay, I can feel myself rising up. So going back into that whole attunement, like I got to understand the flavor of my own anxiety. I understand the flavor of my own dysregulation, because if I can't see it, I can't change it. So if I feel it and I see it, then what I'm doing is basically trying to run through the steps in real time. I might not do the like identify what is the aspirational version of me, like who's the aspirational parent. I'll just focus on the opposite, right? So what's the opposite of this? Well, the opposite of this is like, okay, recognizing he's like, okay, my son is just frustrated and he's throwing a tantrum that actually has nothing to do with me. Okay, cool. So how do I have to be to ride his wave? Because as a parent, I got to ride my wave, and I also have the capacity to ride his wave because he's going to model what it is that I'm actively doing. Right. So basically that's what I'm trying to tune to in the moment. And if I understand what's happening internally, and if I understand what I need and what's the opposite, I can do a mini version of this in essentially real time. Okay. And if all I get done is like, I just stop the tsunami from like completely going over and like I collapse and I yell, then like that's a win. But like that's a win because I was able to ground myself enough to ride that particular wave. Right. And then these little wins compound over time. Like that's compound examples of my son not seeing me, collapse and lose it. That's me continuously learning and reinforcing that, okay, it's safe to like be this way and I don't have to lose it. So those are, I think, the two big ones, right? Like retroactively when you just do lose it, and then as much as possible in the moment, run through those same steps, and really get a good feel of like what's actually driving that and what do you actually need in that moment.
Yeah, I love that. That was, and I love that. You're even like, if I get to this point, at least I've done something. At least I've accomplished something. Because a lot of people, they don't recognize anything they're doing right. They're so focused on what's going wrong that they lose focus on what goes right. And there's always something going right. Everything does not go wrong. I was talking about before with someone about these general statements we make as humans. I can't do anything. Everything is impossible. Everything is going wrong. Is it? Or is it just something went wrong and the rest went right? Same thing with kids. We need to recognize that in kids. And I think a lot of times we almost don't break into simple enough steps so that it's not just this giant tsunami. It's pieces of the waves, the drifts, I love the tsunami scenario.
Yeah. And I mean, just to add to that, because I kind of alluded to it in even the presentation, it was like there's a reason why you start with training wheels when you're like riding a bike, right? Like riding with training wheels is not going to allow you to go super fast. You're not going to be able to mountain bike. You're not going to be able to do turns. Like, you're not going to be able to do tricks, but like it's a necessary part of the equation because it gives you enough structure to practice the things you need to practice. Like, how do I turn the wheel? How do I turn the pedals, et cetera, right? Or you can think of driving and like why do you start on a parking lot? Right? Because there's just like less things going on. It's a slowed down environment. And like going back to like your statement with regards to like breaking it down into steps and looking at what's right. It's like, this is why most of the early stages of this is going to be done retroactively, right? Because you are in your default reaction. That's probably the reaction you repeated thousands of times. You've just repeated differently like 3 times. But like it's unfair to expect that after riding my bike 3 times, I'm now going to be, a master, whatever, downhill mountain biker or whatever. Right. So it's kind of like we judge ourselves too quickly, and like we're all guilty of it. It's like, welcome to being human, but it doesn't change the fact that it's true. Right. So it's like, yes, small repeated baby steps with training wheels will eventually translate into, I can just ride smoothly and do this in real time.
Yeah. I love that. I love it. Does anybody else have any questions? I'm not even looking at the chat. Hold on. I think they like that. Okay. Well, if anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat. I just want to let everybody know that we're going to have an open hour after Drasko starting in 15 minutes, basically at 3 p.m. Eastern time, where I will be in here. And anyone can come on and ask questions about anything particular to them. Whatever speakers want to stay can stay, show up, and you can ask questions to them. I believe we'll have our resident artist, our I think she's joining us, our art therapy wisdom keeper. I think she will be here during that time. So even though it's going to be a little different during that hour, and then we have 3 more people that will be speaking into the evening. So Drasko, thank you very much for your wisdom and your calm, because you're always so calm. And I really appreciate you being here. And I love your topic, because that often is what makes us not so calm.
Yes, and yeah, this was super fun. So thank you for inviting me as well.
And Dr. Matthew, I know he don't call me doctor. Matthew said, here, I'll put it up here so you can read it, because I'm not sure I can. Very true about bradykinetic physical and mental focus. Good talk.
Thank you.
So thank you, Drasko. And I'll see you soon. So I'll see you live.